It's turning into a full-scale crackdown in Canada. This is a live picture in Ottawa of protesters facing off with police. Police are arresting 2 leaders of the Freedom Convoy. They did that just last night, and they're moving in to make more arrests today, just as banks began to freeze the accounts of those linked to demonstrations on orders from Canada's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. And now, donors to the Freedom Convoy are facing harassment after a data breach on crowdfunding site revealed their names. A cafe owner in Ottawa broke down as she shared her story with our own Jesse Waters.
Never in my 56 years have I ever experienced a country so divided, so full of hatred towards friends and neighbors. Sorry, I lost you there. So full of hatred towards their friends and neighbors. They might have opinions that differ from theirs, but they're so willing to publicly shame and humiliate and spew forth angry vitriol. We have been called terrorists. For the first 36 hours, we were inundated with hatred, with threats of violence. People threatened our team on the phone, telling them we're coming to get you. We're going to throw bricks through your window. You'll pay for this, you Nazi supporter. I personally have been called a disgusting pig of a woman and that I should rot in hell. Our rural shop out in Merrickville, Ontario, someone draped a large bed sheet over our sign. I'm sorry. It's been a tough few days, and I think, the sign read, "Tammy supports terrorists."
Hard to listen to, and never forget it was so-called journalists that doxed women like this, just innocent business owners who gave to a cause they believed in, Julie. But alarming to me is the role of the government in all of this. I mean, it's really crystallized in my mind the difference between the country we live in and our northern neighbor. When I saw a tweet like this last week, this is from the Ottawa police, and they're tweeting, anyone attempting to bring material support like gas, just supplies to these guys, could be subject to arrest. I mean, this is a very scary government in Canada. It's almost autocratic, it feels.
I mean, they have a tyrant now. I mean, like Justin Trudeau is actually a tyrant. I mean, the fact that he's not only arresting people for speaking their mind and sticking up for themselves, considering they carried us through the pandemic. These truckers were the ones, when we had all those shortages of supplies, they were the ones delivering the toilet paper, for example, that this country was at a loss for. And the United States and Canada, played a huge role in supplying all of us while we were in lockdown, essentially. And so now that they're no longer needed, or I guess we just don't care about inflation anymore, so they are now being wasted, and all this energy on truckers who are just trying to do their jobs, for God's sakes. And the other thing that's... I mean, it's crazy. I know that the dog thing we're supposed to talk about later, but I can't get over the pets. That they're actually threatening owners of animals. That if you, in fact, a government that will kill your dog for simply disobeying their orders is basically one of the tweets that we had lined up that basically states that if you are unable to care for your pet, we will take your pet away at your expense for a week. And if you don't come back and claim it, they're going to basically kill your dog.
It's incredible that the autocracy is extending to the animals. You have the details on that, Emily.
Yeah, it's government-sanctioned euthanasia, essentially, is what we're listening to. So take a look at what the government put out. This disgusting, callous, frankly, evil policy, especially in conjunction with the image Ottawa used of that little puppy. This is a truly nauseating display, and frankly, it conveys the heartless disregard for their community, right? Their citizens. For example, Congressman Jeremy Faison tweeting out that a government that will kill your dog for simply disobeying their orders on a public demonstration will eventually have no issue killing you for the same. Trudeau is a fool and a tyrant. Former Senator Orrin Hatch weighing in also, he said, "We are taking away your puppies is a great way to show you that we no longer worry about the optics of this crackdown." He's exactly right. Even El Salvador's president, you guys, calling for more international condemnation and also tweeting, what would happen if a Latin American government did this to its political opposition, right? There'd probably be a different and even more pronounced uproar. And then just an average Canadian summing it up, in my opinion. He tweeted, "This is an unusual form of cruelty. How will your relationship with your community survive this? Really? You know these are working class people. How do you ever expect them to trust you again, Justin Trudeau? Have you thought that far ahead? Does it even matter to you?" And I predict the answer is that relationship will not survive this. And by the time it matters to the government, it will be too late.
Man, those are eye-opening tweets. Very powerful, Emily. You're exactly right. Jimmy, very few journalists have taken the time to actually go talk to the truckers. We know elitist Trudeau won't actually go talk to them, but Michelle Goldberg of the New York Times did. Here's something she found. There were plenty of people on the streets who seemed genuinely baffled by the media's description of them as part of a far-right movement. They've been infuriated and in some cases unmoored by Canada's pandemic restrictions, which have been stricter than America's. Here's where you come in, Jimmy. As the National Post reported, during the Omicron wave, the provinces of Quebec and Ontario closed schools and imposed blanket bans on indoor dining, gyms, and bars, and Quebec enacted a 10 p.m. curfew. Jimmy, I just think you couldn't last with the 10 p.m. curfew.
Listen, the person I empathize the most with in this story is actually the gelato store owner, because I look like a guy who gets paid in gelato. Let's be honest. But here's the thing, and I want to make a good point about these truckers, because I talk to nonstop truckers on the phone on my nationally syndicated radio show, which you can listen to Monday through Friday on 100 stations. Hey, girl. I have talked to so many truckers. I actually have to stop talking to truckers because I'm starting to say the word a boot. You understand? I've adopted their accent, but I want to echo that earlier point that this is not a conservative moment. This is a freedom moment. These are just objective observers who've seen flimsy science used as a justification to trample freedom. And they're not necessarily anti-vax, but they're very anti-autocracy. And that's what's going on here. But the one thing I want to say really quick is, as a former New York City cab driver, I normally am conditioned and calibrated to hate anyone who causes traffic. Like, when you sit all day in a cab, you'll get mad at a guy for getting hit by a bus. You'll be like, how dare you? It took me 20 minutes to merge. You should have looked both ways. But I have so much empathy for these truckers. Why? Because the longer they stay, the more it exposes just how shallow the entire left-wing playbook is. Trudeau has lost the empathy on his side.
Well, you just used the curse word, the word that we're not allowed to say, and that is freedom. We're told by Canadian media that freedom's a far-right term. Trudeau says it's malleable. It's not. And then, of course, CNN says whatever that means.
I think we all believe that the United States has shared values with Canada until this. And it's a reminder that how important it is to preserve and protect the freedoms and rights that we have here in the United States. Even if you're against the truckers, even if you don't believe in them, to Jimmy's point, causing traffic, what have you, anyone who has read history should be very afraid when the government exercises extraordinary powers against a certain group of people, because next it will be you. It will be the group that you belong to. And particularly when it's a wannabe emperor, a haircut with an ego, like Justin Trudeau.
That is very well said. What a description.